What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the AMS Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Michael Soto, discussing things about films past, present, and future. And in today's episode, I'm going to pose a question to you all first. I've been asked this question and I haven't able to answer it. I kind of give one or two answers, but the question I have for you all is what are your favorite films of all time? And you may be able to answer that, you may not be. And because I didn't go into specifics, you want me to, does it have to be animated? 90 different eras, 90s, 80s, 2000s. To me it seems a little bit hard. I love a lot of films. I've haven't seen some films. Some of you have maybe seen more films than I have. And as we go over a list or references of a list, as you're clicked on this episode, instead of us talking about or discussing about best films of all time or your best films, let's talk about most iconic movie scenes of all time or best movie scenes of all time. And the reason being on that is just due to the fact of that scene itself left a lasting impression on you that was either exciting, scary, you laughed, you cried, you were just in amazement. You didn't expect that in that particular scene. So what comes to mind, if you've already seen, did a recent episode of ranking the Star Wars movies, different iconic scenes there. Spoiler alert to those who haven't seen it, but when Darth Vader says, "No, Luke, I am your father," and just that very exact moment when Luke is just in disarray and in shock, not realizing what he just heard from one of the most evilest villains ever in movie film history. Um, Say hello to my little friend. I could go on, but let's go ahead and go through a list. I try to find stuff as what you've seen thus far, gone on the web, try to see, gonna go through a list of them and let's see what you all think. Give me just a second here as I share my screen. This is going to be best movie scenes of all time according to Buzzfeed. And if for anything you guys may disagree, that's totally fine. You let me know in the comments, what are your favorite movie scenes of all time and where do you think should be in this list here? I'm going to minimize myself. No, I'm going to go this way. And as we proceed, I'll leave you the website on the movie scenes themselves, but one of the scenes here, if you all have seen the film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where Miles realizes, or he's trying to realize when will he find his moment on becoming Spider-Man. And going to read you just the quote here. Spoiler alert for some of these movies. When will I know? And Peter Parker tells him, "You won't. That's all it is, Miles, a leap of faith." And the way this animation does, I've praised this movie on other videos. It basically just kind of, he pushes himself off of a building, and as if you're able to see it kind of on the way my computer is, he is literally backwards going down to the ground, but like the animation camera is getting everything from, like, I would say, his point of view. And it's one of those that's just an awesome movie overall, but definitely, and the music behind it, it's definitely one to, I would say, is a very good movie scene. And next one is No Country for Old Men. Very good film when Anton makes the store owner choose his fate with the flip of a coin, and you've all have seen it. I'll try not to spoil all of this, but the tension and the buildup, where this poor older gentleman and he kind of just tells them they go back and forth with a thing of a coin, and it's one of those that it's an eerie sort of tension, and Javier Bardem's character is just menacing overall. And the next one is The Social Network, when Eduardo, confronted by Mark and Sean, finds out that he's been removed from the company, and Eduardo talks to Mark and has the argument, but then he goes next to Sean, saying that he likes standing next to him. He makes him seem tough because Andrew Garfield's character is willing to beat the crap out of Justin Timberlake's character. And The Social Network, really good film. Next one, It's a Wonderful Life, when the town people come to save George Bailey and Clarence got his wings. This is one that I'm definitely going to have to check out myself, but if you all know the scene, if you're able to read it there, and I'm going to more or less discuss the particular moments on popular scenes, and this is a very popular film, especially during the holidays. It gets discussed. Parasite, it's someone on my list. I'm wanting to see it, and from what I hear, it's one that ends up being an interesting watch and just the message behind it. So I'm gonna avoid spoilers on my end, but if you all have seen the movie, this is a scene where a montage played of Kim's family scheme to get rid of Moon Guang, the housekeeper. And if you know the scene, you know the scene. Next one in Precious, where she's talked about her trauma and she didn't deserve anyone's love, but Miss Rain reassured her that she's worthy of everything. I remember seeing this film once, a very powerful film, and just the discussion of the ups and downs of family overall. And Gabra Sidibe, I believe, is the actress's name. Yes, Gabra Sidibe, and just a very powerful movie, and just this quote alone is definitely one that's, I would say, I can consider up there. The Usual Suspects, when I'm sorry if I butchered it, Kujan realized that every single word out of Verbal's mouth is perfectly orchestrated lie, and Verbal was actually Kaiser Sose. And I'm kind of going to butcher this, but then, and this one, just recently saw this about a month ago. Jojo Rabbit, when he's chasing a butterfly, then realized that his mother has met her demise. Done by Taika Waititi, very kind of coming of age story, and especially a discussion of dealing with Nazis. I kind of won't spoil it for you. And Singing in the Rain, obviously you know the song, and this is one of those musical type movies that was released back then, and I've seen this discussed in movies alone, and just the powerful things of how movies were changing back then at the time. Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter o- gets Clarice to open up about her childhood and her emotions. Anthony Hopkins is just menacing in this movie. So if you all know that scene, let me know. You agree? Crazy Stupid Love, when Jacob and Hannah started revealing their childhood secrets in bed together, and Jacob felt comfortable enough to open up for the first time in his life. This is one of those enjoyable rom-com comedies. And of all the movies, I'm not, as you may have known or may have not known, I am not much of a horror fan, but I've heard of the way this ending was, is that one of the victims in the movie Saw, Jigsaw, was in the room the entire time, as revealing to be one of the deceased victims. I won't spoil it. In Crazy Rich Asians, Rachel and Eleanor battle for Nick's love, and this one is another heartwarming comedy movie about just relationship, family, acceptance, and I've actually seen it several times. Not afraid to admit it. A very well done movie by Warner Brothers. And let me know if you all seen it. Rear Window. I've stated in the past that Alfred Hitchcock has done a variety of different movies, and this was one of them, where a man is looking through his windows and just trying to get by the day, but is trying to see if he's realized that one of his neighbors is actually a murderer. And if you've seen the film, let me know. Now You See Me. I've only seen the first one, not the second one, but it's more or less The Magician. I'm kind of gonna not make this a long episode, but kind of just the caption of each of them and kind of describe. And even though I haven't seen some of them, I know like I've seen the clips and stuff get brought up in history of movies and things like that. Avengers Endgame, when Cap is been knocked down by Thanos, and all of a sudden he's the only one on the battlefield until everybody shows up, and it was fantastic from there. And the next one is Wizard of Oz, and on the thumbnail, Wizard of Oz is an iconic film overall. The history behind it and everything. When Dorothy's house is supposedly gone through a tornado, going from the black and white to the Technicolor and going in through the land of Oz. Hereditary. Anyone that has seen this moment when Annie went off her son at dinner because she could no longer bottle up the trauma of losing her daughter. In Casablanca, I'm going to need to sit down maybe today or tomorrow, sit down and watch this. I believe it's 3 hours long, but as I saw a documentary about Warner Brothers films, this film has a lot of history and special moments. In this in particular, is this scene in particular, or I think it was another one, but just a very interesting movie at the time when it was made and released. Next one is Do the Right Thing. I know a friend who's brought up this film to me and I need to watch it. I will. When several characters of different backgrounds and ethnics spoke directly to the camera and spewed racist remarks, literally confronting racism head on. So, you know the movie, you know that moment. And Call Me By Your Name, when Professor Perlman consoled Eloy, talking about him, love, life, and heartbreak. Psycho, when Norman Bates' mother is revealed. Very good film to watch and just to kind of study the history about it. La La Land, the final moment in the scene. Ratatouille, when at the end of the film, when the reviewer realizes on Cousteau's quote of anyone can cook, because it's the story about a mouse who just wants to cook, or a rat for that matter. Ratatouille, sorry. It happened in one night. I'm not familiar with the film, but kind of gonna scroll through. The Color Purple. I've heard that this, I'm not going to spoil it for myself, but I've heard that this film will be a definite tearjerker, and I believe they are doing a remake or an updated version of it, kind of like a musical style, which is expected to come out later on in Christmas. So keep an eye out on that. But this one is starring Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey. I'm going to pass on the spoilers here. The Dark Knight, something I'm familiar with. And no, not just because I'm gonna go through some that are not comic book based, but the reveal of Heath Ledger's Joker when he's basically called out by one of the bankers, and he's basically telling him, "You have no honor and respect." And Heath Ledger basically goes from revealing in the clown mask to the makeup and the actual close up of what he looks like, which is totally different from Jack Nicholson and Cesar Romero, who played the Joker. In To Kill a Mockingbird, when Atticus Finch delivered his closing remarks in an attempt to prove that Tom Robinson was an innocent man. One of those classic films that definitely needs to be on my list. Ben-Hur, when 9 minutes chariot race took place, showcasing one of the most intense action scenes ever. Another popular film, the film Us, when you get a reveal here, and I'm going to try to avoid spoilers for you all as well on maybe films you haven't seen, but the twist reveal of meeting the opposite person, that's all I'll say. Then 1917, very well done film. And as this character Will goes through this burnt town, just trying to survive to complete a mission. And it is just gut wrenching. Well, not actually, it's just, it keeps you on the edge of your seat and just an all around entertaining moment. The lighting, the action, the sound, there's really no dialogue. And it's basically just a very well done film. In The Apartment, when Fran handed Baxter a broken mirror, unknowingly telling him that she was the woman who his boss is having an affair with. Mulan, when the emperor bowed down to Mulan because she saved everyone from the Huns in the background, and all of China started to bow down to her too. So, one of our first look at a Disney film, and a very popular Disney film to say the least. Breakfast at Tiffany's, when Paul overheard Holly singing Moon River on her fire escape. When Harry met Sally, when Harry confessed his love for Sally and revealed that he didn't want to spend the rest of his life without her. Little Women, when Joy felt overwhelmed by the pressures of being a woman who's expected to marry despite not actually believing in marriage and also feeling so incredibly lonely. Shawshank Redemption, really good film. I had heard of it in the past. It was not critically received, but has become kind of like a cult hit because people revisit it. Certain moments in the film when Andy tries to escape through the prison. West Side Story, Anita and the Sharks dance while singing about success, dreams, and living in America as Puerto Ricans. Jurassic Park, when everyone first meets the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And definitely some iconic moments in that film overall as well. Some Like It Hot. Not familiar. Still trying to go as quickly as I can. The Truman Show, a very good film done by Jim Carrey, as he finally realizes what's going on and says his final words. Rocket Man, a biography of Elton John. The moment where he goes down the swimming pool and realizes the pressure and overwhelming sensation of what it takes to become an artist. Very good film. The Lady of Eve. I do apologize if I feel like I'm rushing. I just want to make time because this is 44 out of 76. A Meal, I've heard good things about Emil. When Emil helped the man who's blind across street explain the tiny things she saw detailed, resulting in magical sensory overload. Zodiac, when Robert realized that he was alone in the basement with a suspected killer and he had to escape but could not let that he knew too much. And guess who's coming to dinner? When Christina stood up against her racist employee, fired the spot and telling her a permanent loss. Like I said, I'm going to leave the list in the description below, but I'm going to just try and go through more of a quicker sense here. The Hunger Games, when it was the first moment for Katniss to hear the preparation as she began her first time in the games. Prisoners, very good film, and don't want to spoil it, but once you hear the detective looking for a particular person and you hear the faint of a whistle, and that's all I'll say. Monster Ball, when Hank fed Letitia ice cream while she quietly thought about whether she was worthy for her love and their future together. I believe Halle Berry received some award recognition, and so did Billy Bob Thornton as well for this film. Freaks and Antoinette. And The King and I. And Century Women, the final montage scene. The Searchers. Ex Machina. Heard very good sci-fi film. Juno. Good coming of age rom-com film. Queen and Slim. Cameron Jones. And as I'm seeing this list with you all here, there's just so many movies out there. And like I said, the vast majority of genres from A to Z and just different types of films. As I know, so many people, I know friends that particularly like action films, comic book films, horror, gangster films, westerns, and it's basically one of those that just leaves you in awe, in suspense, and just the appreciation for that particular moment. And here's one. Oh, where is it? There it is. Sound of Music, the opening shot by Julie Andrews. What's this one? Rebel Without a Cause by James Dean, I believe. Yes, James Dean. Need to watch his filmography, even though he unfortunately passed at such a young age. In Doubt. Once Upon a Time in the West. Westerns. Wonder Woman. And when they first tried to create Wonder Woman and film, because obviously it was done via TV, this moment right here was pretty interesting. And no man's land, and it was one of those where Diana helps to fight in the war. 12 Angry Men. Devil Wears Prada. The Godfather. When Michael has renounced the devil in his godson's baptism, intercut with crimes his gang is committing. So definitely The Godfather itself has very iconic moments. Jaws, a popular film done by Steven Spielberg, very iconic scenes and moments throughout. It was such a fascinating film that I've heard in past experiences or people saying that at the time of that movie's release, the film caused people not to go in the water. In Seven, when I believe the characters have to take out the main character. In Glorious Bastards, the opening scene, which I've seen in the past or hear get referenced tons of times, when Christopher Waltz speaks to a farmer and just the tension, and it's just dialogue and just a very intense moment. And that's pretty much it. I kind of didn't want to go through each of them because, like I said, it was one of those that it was one of those that basically goes in the sense of it's hard to explain. This episode is kind of just going through a list of stuff you can look online. I've looked through different lists. Some came out back in 2018, 2017. They're not updated because recent films or different genre of films have been coming out. But it's one of those that, in the sense of just film is an art within itself, and we appreciate it because in my very first episode of this podcast, I asked the simple question, why do we watch movies? I watch movies differently to experience a story that I've maybe never seen before, an IPA that I'm familiar with, different moments in my life, and you may all be having the same feelings as me or share the complete opposite of what you've all have experienced for a particular movie. And watching the many movies you have seen, I have seen, we take in that moment of those iconic film scenes that basically are just entertaining to watch, and you'll always remember that. If I were to bring a movie A, you could probably give me movies, three moments in that movie, the scenes in specific that become like, oh man, I loved in this moment when character A said this to character B, or I started getting emotional when this happened. I could literally make this a 3-hour episode, and we could go through the list of so many different things, but it was one of those where I wanted just to bring up a few examples, and I'll leave the discussion for you. You let me know, as I stated in the beginning, if you're able to, what would you put? If you could give me 10, give me 10. If not, five. Your five greatest movies. No specifics, no specific eras. Five greatest movies of all time. If you don't think you can do that, that's fine. Then on today's episode, let me know your favorite movie scenes from any era, decade, genre. What did impact you? What did you hate because it was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened? I got emotional because that character said that most famous iconic line. Um, it's one of those that it's never endless. It's endless. You could just keep going and going because that's how movies are. It's kind of like music. You have different eras and the lyrics in particular songs for that artist impact you, and it helps you get through different times and moments in your life, just like movies. Movies help me get through the day, or I experience something that I didn't experience before. That yes, I as you may have seen thus far, there's still some films that I need to check out on my list, and we'll definitely work on seeing. But in the meantime, that's it, guys. Let me know what are favorite iconic movie scenes that you all enjoy. What are your favorite movies of all time? It doesn't have to be, like I said, anything specific. Leave it in the comments. And that's it for this episode. I am your host, Adrian Michael Suttle, discussing things about films past, present, and future. I will see you all next time. Bye bye for now.